Never gets boring, that. Never gets boring. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
No, not at all.
Welcome to what is the second in our three-part mini-series. We're still in season 2 of LearnLiveUAE. Tonight's show is the second of 3 parts in our mini-series. Last week, we saw Clive Gibson and Miss Nicola Ann sharing their top tips for Microsoft schools. This evening, really excited to welcome 2 influential educators in the region to share their top tech tips for teachers in Apple schools. We've got Michael Henderson at Tech Mr. Henderson, who is a EdTech trainer for Al Ain Educational Investments. He's Assistant Head Digital Innovation at the Sheikh Zayed Private Academy for Boys, an Apple Distinguished Educator and an Apple Professional Learning Specialist. And alongside Michael this evening, we also have Philippa Wraithmell, who's a Digital Learning Specialist. She's an Apple Distinguished Educator as well, is in charge of all things digital at Cranley in Abu Dhabi, and is also a BetMia Advisory Board member. So really keen to hear from them tonight. Before, though, we invite them onto the show, Mark, one little shout out. Next week's episode 3 in our EdTech mini-series is all about top tech tips for teachers in Google schools. And we welcome back onto the show Ben at VHPS Assistant Head. And sadly, John can no longer join us, but our special guest will be announced later in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good to hear back from Ben Rothwell. My name is Mark Anderson, ICT Evangelist. It's a great pleasure, as always, to be presenting and sharing on this show that I do with Ollie Lewis, Lewis_coaching on Twitter. Really, really excited to see what Michael and Philippa have to share with us this evening. I'm a big Apple fanboy, if truth be told. Although I do love other EdTech is available. I love my Surface and my Chromebook, but big love for Apple technology. So I'm really keen to find out and sort of dig into the things that Philippa and Michael are going to be sharing this evening. Ollie, do you want to do a little shout out for our little live from a certain place later on in the month?
Certainly, yeah. You may have seen us mentioning it in previous shows or even or a tweet earlier today, but we are hosting a very special episode of LearnLiveUAE live from the Guest EdTech Virtual Summit in Dubai on the 24th of November. The summit itself is across the 24th and 25th. For more information, you can visit www.guestleaders.com. The focus of our panel discussion for that particular special show is going to be why bother with EdTech. Of course, no secret that both you and I, Mark, are huge advocates for the power that EdTech has, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what our panelists have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And without running this by you first, Ollie, I'm just going to share a bit of news that I've got, because I'm going to be delivering the opening keynote for that EdTech Summit. So I'm really excited to be given the opportunity to share in that sort of a way at that event. So please do, as Ollie said, get onto the website, get yourself signed up, and really looking forward to not only doing that keynote, but also hearing from the voices of some fantastic people on our panel. More on that next week once we firmed up all of our guests for that panel, but really excited to be sharing at the event. So, Mr. Lewis, I think it's time we brought in our first guest this evening. Enough talking about our work and bits and bobs. Enough from us. Let's hear from the experts. Welcome to Mr. Michael Henderson. No, he's not. My bad. Mrs. Wraithmell on Twitter. I was getting around my head, see, because Michael Henderson's Twitter is like Tech Mister, Mr. Tech Henderson, Henderson Tech Mister. I always get it the wrong way round. I was getting myself all confused. I do apologise. Mrs. Wraithmell, welcome to our show again. And I'm assuming Ollie's going to bring you in, and nobody is. So there you go. You're straight in there. This is your third time engaging in LearnLiveUAE. You are our most visited guest on the show. And in fact, if we just run back a second to our video that we started at the beginning of the show, Philippa, you may have noticed a little quote from somebody at the beginning. We are on dancing, look, but thank you for all of your support with the show, not only in terms of coming on and sharing all of your awesome ideas and thoughts and experiences, but also the support of the show on social and sharing and the retweets and all the rest of it. Thank you so much. We both really, really appreciate it. Really excited to hear about your sort of top tips for Apple schools. But before we get into that, Philippa, can you share a little bit about your journey to using Apple tools? I remember reading something you wrote a while ago about your love of Apple technologies. Can you share a little bit about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I do. You know what? It's quite strange. So I'm a design technology background, so obviously technology has always kind of been a really big part of my teaching career. But actually, when I came to the UAE, it was the first time that I'd really taught with tech, because a lot of the schools that I'd worked in before didn't really have the budget for it. I remember requesting a trolley of iPads, and I had to write 2,000 words and submit it to the SLT in the UK, to which they kind of went, oh, no, that's terrible, we can't do that. So it didn't happen. And so it was really exciting to come into the UAE and actually be able to be part of schools that really embraced it. And I guess in some ways had the financial backing to be able to do that. And I was very lucky to find, and actually I think I probably seeked out a little bit, well, quite hard, the role at Repton, and it was because one of the things that drew me to it was an Apple distinguished school. The blog I think you're probably talking about, and perhaps even the video that I created, was for part of my Apple Professional Learning Specialist as to why I should be an Apple specialist. And it's because when I was really little, my dad and I used to go Christmas shopping and shopping generally. He was very good at shopping. And John Lewis would have these beautiful displays of computers, and they would always be Apple. And he would just stand in awe. And he just used to say to me, if you're going to spend money on technology, make it beautiful. And Apple just spends so much time thinking about how it looks, what it does, how it works, how people can benefit from it. And throughout my whole kind of education and career now, it has really benefited me. At university, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. I was really lucky to be given a Mac computer, which had dictation. It had all these different facilities, which allowed me to be able to fully engage with my projects and all of my work. I found it really, really hard to be able to take notes and things like that. And the facility it had allowed me to be able to engage a lot deeper with the things that I was learning about. And so then it kind of really inspired me that actually I need to be able to have these things that can help me to for what I felt to be the same as everybody else, because it just isn't as easy for me to kind of engage in certain things. You know, I find it really hard to read off a screen, and I use so many of the accessibility features to be able to do that these days. And so for me, it became more about that kind of journey. And then when I found Repton and found out that they were an Apple distinguished school, that was it. I was absolutely sold. I was like, I have to work there. If they're into STEM, they're into science, they're into technology, they're Apple distinguished. And that kind of was really where it really grew. And then being able to teach everyone else, it just became really fun. It became really fun kind of finding out how I could help other people feel as excited as I did. And also the children, to be able to let them have that kind of entry into education at such a young age, right from the beginning in primary school, where things weren't a barrier. It didn't matter if you were dyslexic or if you had a visual impairment or anything, if you couldn't hear. All of those things that do make learning such a barrier just are broken down. And I think that's incredible. Like all technology, lots of technology does that these days. But for me, it just is always it always will be. And I think, you know, I think some people have said to me before, it'd be great if you could just be, you know, device agnostic. I'm like, I just can't. I just love it too much. Apple through and through.
That's the thing for me as well, really. Like, you know, Microsoft and the likes of Mike Tholfsen, they've done some fantastic work in bringing together things like Immersive Reader and the features that are available there. But, you know, Apple have quietly been doing accessibility stuff forever. You know, I remember, you know, when we first got our first batch of iPad 2s, when we did our rollout, you know, speak selection, all that it was already there, you know, like 9 years ago. And so, you know, for me, it's always been, you know, it's really, really important. And whilst Apple don't sort of, you know, shout from the rooftops about all the accessibility things that are available, they have been there from the get-go on their devices. And I think that's a really lovely sort of a hallmark of the attention to detail that you mentioned before that they have when it comes to their products. So, yeah, really keen to hear what you've got to share with us, Philippa. Are you ready to roll with your iPad handy? Is that all ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll bring your iPad up onto the screen here. There we go. And we can see your screen now. So Ollie and I will drop ourselves off, as it were, and leave you to present. But we're still here. We're going to hang out with Michael in the green room for a few minutes. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you again for having me, and both Ollie and Mark, and everyone listening. So Mike and I are actually going to do kind of a collaborative experience, which is really nice. Absolutely love working with Mr. Henderson. He is just incredible, passionate, and just fantastically full of brilliant ideas. So this is really, really fun and really exciting. It's great to be able to work with somebody so fantastic. So the first thing I'm going to show you, this is my desktop of my iPad. You can see here it's got kind of all the different apps and things on it. What we're going to be using to begin with is actually Pages. And so Pages is this orange app with the pencil on it. And if I just go back to my documents, you'll see here that if I wanted to create a document, the range of different things that iPad already has and Apple already has is just fantastic. So, I mean, I was talking to a colleague the other day who was asking about, you know, I need a certain platform because we want to do a template of a letter. And I just thought, well, they're on here. Why would you need to do that? You know, we actually don't need to go off and find different platforms and things to pay for and paid apps to be able to recreate this. One of the great things about what iPad is doing is allowing students to be able to have those real experiences. If you are going to make a word processed letter when you're a grown-up, you would do it on an actual word processing document. So we've got lots of templates here. What Mike and I are going to show you today is how we can collaborate within schools and across different year groups and across different students, different staff, different groups of people. We can even collaborate at home with parents if you wanted to. But we're actually going to show you this idea of books. And so what I've done is I've chosen a template, and these templates are fantastic. There's some really great ones, like this little one called Kitty's Morning Walk is really great for sort of FS students. As you get older, you know, you can see how these can be really, really adapted. And I think sometimes when people see something so well mapped out with all these images, it can be quite overwhelming of like, oh, I've got to fill all these pages with things. But what's great about being able to use Pages is the fact that we can change and we can adapt and we can modify these. So this is the one that we've chosen. As you can see before, it is the template, and it was the baking template that we've chosen. And what I'd like to just draw your attention to is if I zoom in here, look, which is again just a really brilliant feature. I'm pinch zooming on my screen to allow myself to be able to go in. As a young child, or even actually just as a student, it's a really great way to be able to give a lot of detail. But you can see all over the place they have these plus buttons. And if I tap on this plus symbol, really simply what I'm able to do is go into my my photographs. You can see here I've got all sorts of different photos, and marking up and saving to photos is something that I do really regularly. But very quickly I can pop myself and Mike into this document here, and I can allow that. It's just going to load in there for me while it's a little bit fuzzy at the minute. And there you go, that's filled. And what it's done is it's filled that whole page for me. As a student, that makes things really easy, because now I'm learning how to make sure that the page is filled to the right proportions. I'm making sure that I understand how to be able to adapt and move things around the page. And I can still still change them. If I wanted to, I could tap on the screen, I can go to my paintbrush tool and go to image, and I can replace that image as well really, really quickly. A great thing about this is that I can also look at things like the style, so I can become quite creative with what I'm doing as well. And all of these features are just really, really simple to be able to do. Okay, I always like to think of it as a paintbrush is somewhere that you decorate, so you know that you can decorate your document by using a paintbrush. And then depending on what I'm actually tapping on, the decoration tools change. So now I'm tapping on some writing, so now I have the formatting of what I can do with that writing. I can look at the text, the line spacing, etc. I can make things a title. Lots of different software does this now and allows us to make those changes. One of the things that I'm doing right now, you can see there that Mike and I are both sharing on this document. Okay, and that's the collaboration tool, and it allows me to be able to work alongside Mike to create a project. And this is great for teachers who are creating content together, but it's also really great for students. So it could be collaborative within the classroom that they're working on. Lots of our students are still remote learning, but it doesn't mean they can't still be working together. Another thing it also allows us to do is if a student is working on a portfolio project, we can go in and we can start to use things like our markup tool, and we can start to map them out. And as you can see down here, the markup tools are fantastic. If you notice just here, we've got this one with the letter A, and this is actually the new part of the iPad's recent update. You'll see here that it actually, if I just use this, here you go, it's actually added onto the bottom because I did a tick. So because I'm actually using that, what I can actually now do is say, oh, hang on, click on my, start right, which is just incredible for students to be able to do that and to be able to translate their handwriting into text writing is just brilliant. And I'm going to go on to Scribble a little bit later and just show you a little bit more about how that all works. But you can see here, if I press the plus button and if I added a blank page in between here, a student very simply could tap on the page and they could start to use some of these tools. So perhaps they're drawing, I don't know, a lot of water and plastic going on in my house at the minute. My youngest son is learning about coral reefs and the environment, and so we'll just draw some of these, and then we might put like a little fish, and then there you go, we can start to actually draw into this as well. And so what we end up having is something where a young student can draw. It could actually be something where an older student may get quite creative and start to draw things like mood boards, and they might start to be thinking about concepts of a design of something that they're looking at. It may well be that they're inspired by coral and they're looking at the different colours from that. So we can do things like we can add in a photograph. Try and think of a photograph that's actually got some colour in. There you go, a little bit of nature. There you go. That's some of the outdoor learning we were doing this week. If I then decided to, I could go to the colour wheel and I can start to use the pipette and I can take out that colour, and automatically I then have that colour there, and I can start to actually utilise that within my design and my drawing. So really, really quickly, we can sort of develop this whole inspirational board of information for children to be able to adapt. And what's really great about that is that if you are doing an art project, you can actually scan and add in your own artwork into this. And actually then what you can do is have children being able to take out the Pantones from a physical drawing or painting that they've created themselves and add it in here. So you'd have the real physical drawing that they've done. They could then make the digital version of artwork, which is just a really nice way to represent the things they're doing. As we go through, you'll see here we're going to cover a range of different elements together on iPad. So what I'm going to do now is, you've seen what we're going to be doing with pages. So I'm going to quickly move on. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot, and that was done with my pencil. My watch is talking to me. Sorry. And taking that screenshot has allowed me, if I just press done, I'm not going to show you Markup because I know that Mike is going to show you that in a second. And I'm going to add that into my next bit. So I'm just going to add that in here. And, oh, not that one. Add and photos. And there it is. So straight away, I've been able to add an additional piece of information into here. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly ask if Mike can take over for a second, because my computer has just told me that it's going to die in a second. Really sorry. Is that possible, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome to the show, Michael Henderson. Welcome, Michael. How are you doing?
Sorry.
Okay, and now your screen is now sharing on the broadcast, Michael. Thank you, Philippa.
Okay, so I'm going to talk through. Do you want me to just jump straight in there, Mark? Good?
Yeah, jump straight in. It was notes next, wasn't it? So do you want to jump straight in there?
Yeah, I'm gonna flip over a little bit and go into Apple Classroom, and then
sure.
come back to notes in a minute. So I'm going to talk through Apple Classroom. As educators at the minute in our schools, we might be working in a hybrid model. We might have some students in class. We can't necessarily interact with them in the same way as we normally would. So something like Apple Classroom is a fantastic solution to help you with your students in your class, but without actually going over to them to see their iPad. So I'm going to open up Apple Classroom. I'm going to create a new class. I'm just going to give it a test name, and you can change and you can customize this however you like. And then when you go into this, you can invite your students to join your class. So then the students on their iPads, I know you can't see a student iPad at the minute, but basically they just go to the settings app, and the classroom will appear the fourth one down on their screens, and then they can press add, and then the class name. So in this case, it's test. They type in a 4-digit code that's on the screen, and that is all the students need to do. You will then see I've now popped up on the screen on my other iPad, and now I can add this student to my classroom. Now what this means is that I can control the student's device, which I've got here, from my teacher device. So I can, for example, I can click on the student, and this gives me some options here, things that I can open, navigate to, and lock, and so on. So really useful for you if you're in the classroom. You can press the screens button, and you can see the screen from the student. So if the student is currently in a thumbnail position, if they go to maybe Safari, you can see whether they're doing what they're meant to be doing or whether they're on something else, and you have to intervene and so on. If you want to see one person's screen bigger, you can just tap on that person, click on View Screen, and then you can see the larger screen from the student here. So why this is beneficial? If the student is doing a piece of work, maybe in Pages like Philippa's just shown, what you can do is look at that piece of work without having to go over to their desk or be near them. Okay, it does work on Bluetooth, so they have to be within the vicinity, but you don't have to be as within those 2 meters, or you can keep a safe distance. You can also, from this point, direct them on what to do. You can maybe, if they're not doing what you're asking them to do, you could perhaps lock their iPad, and that means then the student's iPad is completely locked and there is nothing they can do. That means that maybe they need to pay attention to something that you're demonstrating at the front of the class and so on. You could maybe unlock those. You might be able to say, right, well, I want you all to go to a specific app. Now, for younger students, some of them might find it difficult to navigate where they're going to. Maybe they're lower down in the school and so on. So you can do that for them. So you can click the Open Apps button. You can find the app that you want them to open, and you can also, if you want to, you can lock them in that app. So if I click this here to enable this, now when I click on Keynote, it opens for the students, and they cannot, after they've opened it, exit the app. Okay. So I've opened Keynote. The Keynote is now open on the student's iPad. I'm just going to show you the student view so you can see the student screen. And now when I click on the Home button, I cannot escape. Okay, it's a bit like the guided access feature if you're aware of what that is. So now the students can be working away on this app, and then maybe halfway through the lesson you decide, okay, I want you to now go to Safari and add things into your keynotes. So I'm going to now unlock you from that app, which means now they can press the Home button, or they can swipe up if they're on a newer iPad and get out of this app. Okay. Loads of other things they can do from here as well. You can, for example, mute them if they're doing something where there's sound, and you suddenly get 20 students with sound, or 15 at the moment, I'm sure, with sound playing. You can just mute everyone quickly. you can group them into sections using the group feature up here. So you can have like maybe a red group, a yellow group, a green group, so you can help with your differentiation. You can also from here navigate them to a website or an iBook or iTunes U-Course. So if I was to go into books, your books that's installed on your iPads appear on here, and you can click on those and open those. Philippa will be talking a bit more about books a little bit later. You can also navigate them to a Safari page if you have saved them in your favorites. As well as that, you can share information between the two. So I can, if I have, for example, Safari open, like this page here, I can also just airdrop to the class in one go. So rather than me airdropping to every single 15 students one by one, I can just press share to the test class or whatever class your name you got, and it goes to them all at the same time. Okay, so it's a really nice feature that will help us at the moment during this hybrid remote learning kind of in school, but we can't be as working in groups as much as we would normally, or around the students as much as we should. Okay. Philippa, would you like me to carry on, or do you want to jump in and then come back a little bit later?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry.
All right.
I knew you had to do it though. I just thought I'd throw that curveball in there for you.
Why not?
That's brilliant. Actually, what I might do is show some of the features on Safari, because obviously you've just mentioned that, and then books. That would be really, really helpful. And then maybe we'll come back to you, and then we can go back, can do a bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, brilliant. You're ready for Safari, Philippa, if you want to bring that up.
Absolutely, thanks. Okay, so I will show you. So Safari is fantastic, and I've spoken a little bit already, obviously, about being dyslexic and things like that, but we have so many different sorts of children in our classrooms, and we really, really need to make sure that we are making their learning experience the best possible for them. You can see up here, so I've opened up the Eden project, something that we're working on at school within some of the apps projects that we're doing. And there's just some really, really great features, and they're across all of different things as long as you're using Safari. And as Mike said, you can do this via opening it up through Classroom, and it's really, really useful, because what it does is for each individual iPad, it remembers that child's settings. And I think that's really, really incredible and incredibly useful. One thing that we find with the lower year groups is that it's really, really great for making sure that you are directing students to information that is reputable, good sources of information, that they're not going to be too many adverts on there and have anything that may distract them from what they're really being able to learn. Things like the news, so BBC News is a really great one because it will strip away everything for you. So I'm just going to press the 2 A's that are at the top in the search bar there. And what you can see is these a range of different tools on here. And I can actually start to use the accessibility. So it may well be that I need to make the writing slightly larger. Okay, so I can use the accessibility tools there. Okay, and then if I tap into one of these different things and I have a look at maybe one of the articles in here, let's have a look. What I might do actually is go to the BBC News, because it's really, really useful one to share and show. So what I'll do is if I just go into one of these different things here. So what I can do straight away is I tap on there and I can go to Reader View. And straight away, and you can see that I've got my accessibility features on here. So straight away, it's stripped out all the adverts. All that is there now is the content that students want to use and they need to use. So they don't need to see anything else. We don't need them to have pop-ups. We don't need them to be distracted by an advert or a piece of information and news that may just be, it may be distressing to them, it may not be relevant to them, it may not be age appropriate to them. And that's really important. So that's one thing that we can do. If we also tap on there, you can see that I've changed some of my features. So I've used that grey background because I find it's just a bit easier for me to be able to read from. So this is it normally, but we can use the sort of pale beige cream colour. We can use the grey, or we can even use black. And so we can start to change elements like that. And as I said, it's going to remember the child's decisions. So we can actually put them onto some of the students' iPads for them. So for some of the SEND students, especially those younger students who maybe don't realise the benefits of it, but also some of these older students can change it. And to be quite honest, a lot of students will tell you that even if they don't have a SEND need, actually they prefer to have a specific font. They like to have something that's just going to be a little bit easier to read for them. And it's a really, really great way to be able to just go through different articles online for them to be able to look at. I mean, especially for English, comparative writing, things like that. So the other thing that Mike showed you just a moment ago was where you can airdrop. You can actually see here that I've got devices here, but I've got my Apple Classroom. And if I go into there, I can actually share that with anybody. And you'll notice here that there's a few different applications that I can share it to. And in a moment, I'm going to share this to books. I can also add it to my favorites. So as a teacher, if I think, right, I need them to be able to read this specific article, I'm going to add that to my favorites and press save. Now, when I go into my Apple Classroom and I go to my navigate Safari, I can navigate them direct to here. So as Mike mentioned, you do need to have that on your favorites list to be able to navigate a student there. The other thing that you can do as well is just have a look for certain words. So there you go, we can start to look. So we might look for different keywords, different things that we're within that we can do that. The other really, really brilliant thing that I absolutely love is that actually we can use markup tools directly onto here. And although Mike's going to go over the markup tools, I just wanted to share with you that's something that we can do directly onto the web browser. We don't need to save it and share it straight away with someone. We don't need to add it to a folder. It can just be added onto here. And we can start to get students to start to think about what different information is actually relevant to them and what they might need to change and add. Okay, so that's just something that we can do. When I press my markup tool circle in the top right-hand corner, I can now open that in books. And I can also share it somewhere else. So it may well be that I'm collating different pieces of information for an assignment that I'm doing. So actually I want to save it to files, and that's something that could be really easy. And I just tap there and I can pop it into my cloud and save it. And straight away, I'm able to even edit the title of it. So I know people probably very similar to me is forget to do that. And it's just a really nice way of being able to save things really quickly them in and changing what that article is called, something that's relevant to them that they're going to be able to remember. So I want to now open this in books. And what I think is really great about this as well is the fact that actually it's exactly the same. It obviously looks slightly longer and thinner, but that doesn't mean that we can't make it larger. So you can see there it's already saved my annotations on there already. And that's something that now what we can do is we can start to think about bookmarking certain parts. We can even search the words again. We can share it into a different document. It may well be that we want to share it to our email, something along those lines. And we can also add on the accessibility features and have it read to us, which is just, again, a really, really nice addition to that. One of the great things about, sorry. Going to the wrong thing. There we go. One of the great things about this is it actually shows you your library. You can see here that I've also got scans of things that are saved in here, and I've got lots of different books. So you can save any type of PDF in here, and obviously they can all be shared to different people. We can mark them as finished. So it may well be that you want students to read a certain amount a day. And one of the really nice elements of books now is actually that you can add into it a reading goal, which I think is fantastic. If we are in schools at the moment, I mean, everybody, all of our teachers will know, and educators out there, that reading is just so incredibly important. And if we can even be sharing things like news articles and getting students to be reading for 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, it's just a really, really nice thing. Actually, it does have that kind of automatic praise when you've made your, I mean, mine says 5 minutes, but if you've made yours, then it actually can kind of, it goes, congratulations, you've got your reading goal for today. And that for young learners and young readers is really, really nice for them to be able to have. You can also obviously go to the bookstore. There's a range of different accessibility user guides, and all of the Apple Teacher books are all in there as well. Some of the ones that I personally would recommend are the Everyone Can Create books. They're absolutely fantastic for all different project ideas, different ways that you can blend things into the curriculum. So we now, I just wanted to quickly show you, because I went into books. I'm actually going to show you that we can add, and I'm going to insert I'm going to insert that article into there. So within my book that I'm creating in pages that we can then turn into an EPUB and publish, share with parents, share on different virtual learning environments, share with different people from around, we can actually start to add in PDFs, different things that we've added, and we can actually share in the content that we've got as well. So from there, we also have notes just before I pass over to, in fact, what I haven't shown you, which is Scribble. First of all, I'm going to show you Scribble with my Apple Pencil. So Scribble is brilliant. Scribble allows you to write anywhere. Okay, so I showed you a little bit on pages, but I just wanted to show you on here. Let me just think, let's put in. And there you go. So children can look anywhere. They can start to find things via Scribble on their files. It may well be that they're on the search bar. They may even be on Safari. Delete that one now. And they might even be looking for a new website. So let's go back to the Eden project. And the great thing is that eventually what happens is that the iPad starts to get to know your handwriting, and it will start to pick up on the way that your lettering is formed. So initially you might find I did that, it made me realize how scruffy my handwriting was. But again, that's a really nice thing. And one of the things that I really like about it is the fact that when we learn a lot quicker, and we embed the knowledge to a much deeper level when we physically handwrite. And that's from, that has been documented in research. When we're typing, we're more likely to kind of fade out because it becomes such an automatic, whereas there is a process within your brain that if you're handwriting on things, it will consolidate that information just better. And so keeping students writing is so, so important. And actually the fact that the iPad can now have this idea of scribbling anywhere on it allows students to be able to really, really utilize the fact that they can handwrite. I know students in our school have said that they absolutely, if I'm practicing my handwriting, I've written it, they've absolutely loved it because it's allowed them to really be able to speed up their work, because they're not necessarily always needing to type. But when you're typing potentially on the keyboard, on the actual interface of the iPad, it's not as nice of an experience as perhaps if they have got the keyboard. And actually a lot of children just want to be able to write, and that's so, so great that we still have children who want to do that, and we don't want that to disappear. So looking at the features of Notes is one of my favorite things that I just think it's incredible. The way it has progressed and changed even over the last 12 months is just amazing. Great for graphic organizers, great for writing notes, great for retrieval practice, great for just so many different things. You can see down here what I've got actually is just a range of different folders, and I've added some folders, and this one's just called 2020. So this one's called New Note now. If I do tap on here, the first thing would be the title. So that's going to be in bold, and that's there for me. And then what I can start to do is I can do things like having a checklist. So I can have check, learn, live, done. Okay, and then I could maybe even add a photograph, take a photograph, and I can use the photograph. I can tap on the photograph, and I can actually use the markup tools on the photograph, and I can save it. So imagine if I'm doing a science experiment in school, all of a sudden I can take photographs of it in real time. I can then perhaps, Ollie's going to be really upset with me because this is my Bunsen burner. He's going to be like, what are you drawing? I can start to talk about what all different parts are and what crazy concoctions being made, okay? And we can start to add this information in, and then I can start to check off the objectives of that lesson that's happened. And I can even go into my photos, and you can see here, I can scan a document. So I've brought a little book from over, I've been having a look at, so you can see, and this is great at the minute for while students can't necessarily, I mean, in our school, they're not allowed from a certain level to be able to to be able to handwriting back to us. So we have to have them to scan things in. So handwritten documents become really, really important. We can rotate them. We can even change the color to have grayscale, to have different fonts, to even beige it out if it's something that we want to be able to read, to make sure that we are able to access it. We can crop it. We can look at different things. And we can also share it and save it to files directly from Notes, which is just brilliant. The other things that we can do, if I press done and that's there, I can actually then, I can use the markup tools on here as well. So I can start to write on it as well. I could maybe, it could be a book cover that I was actually going to edit and annotate and have on there. So straight away, it becomes a really versatile tool. So you can imagine one lesson, I've got my objectives, I've taken a photograph of what's happening, I've redrawn it, I've added my keywords, and then I've done a scan of the worksheet or the work that I've done physically as well. If I then go into my ellipsis tool, I can actually add in lines and grids as well. And so down here, what I can do is I can have an hypothesis, and I can start to make my points, but I can actually utilize those lines and grids as well. So it could be a maths lesson, it could be that I'm doing a chart. There's so many different things that could be added into this. So I can have all of these different things, and then I can actually share this directly to a folder. I can share it to the Google Drive and it will save it as a PDF, or you can share it to wherever you need to and it can save as a PDF. I can even share it to books. And that then becomes a whole lesson of my learning all in one different thing, or it could just be a range of all of these different notes that have been added. And that just makes it such a versatile tool to be able to be using these days. You can also, like I say, you can use the Scribble tool on here as well. So if I just show you, here we go, we have Scribble. So I will now hand back to Michael.
Oh, thank you very much. Some excellent things that you've shown there. Lots of really, what you'll notice that Philippa has just mentioned, there's markup on all of these different areas. So it's not like markup's only for one app. It's across the board. And if you don't have Apple Pencils, markup does work with your finger as well. The Scribble feature won't work with without an Apple Pencil, but the other features do work just with your finger. Okay. So I'm going to go through now a couple of other things. I'm going to go through, well, time is running short, so I'm going to just go over a couple of other things. One of them is drag and drop feature. So if I'm in Safari and I have, for example, a website like this, as Philippa said, we can move it into a Safari reader view like this, and then I can maybe ask them, I want them to put that information into a Keynote presentation, which they can then present themselves. So what I can do from here is if I swipe up 1 inch from the bottom of my screen, I can get a Keynote and open it side by side. I can, obviously, I've already opened this one, but you can open a Keynote presentation there. And then if I add in let's go for this one, I can highlight this information like this, and I just tap, hold, drag it across, and let go, and that information then comes into my Keynote. And I can obviously format it using the format paintbrush afterwards, but that's just quite a good place, like a dumping ground for information. The same works with pictures. So if I didn't have this on, I could get a picture, drag that in, let go, and pop that in there. And if I wanted to then teach them how to create a bibliography or source their information, I can use the website address as well. Use the URL, drag that in, and you can see that then is underneath. Okay, so really good for creating maybe like a presentation about all of the research that they found. When you finish with that, you can just use the bar in the middle, drag it across, and then it's disappeared. Okay. Now, one other feature I'm going to show you today is how to create maybe an instruction video for the morning message to your students, or something like that, where you can have something interactive where you're talking on the screen, but you have information appear on the screen at the side. So I'm going to go to a new presentation. I'm going to choose a theme, and I'm just going to choose a blank, a basic white theme, and I'm going to delete the information that's on there. Okay, so I've got a blank screen like this. This is going to be my template. Using the camera app, I'm just going to open the camera, change the video mode, and have it on selfie mode like this. I'm just going to record a quick message I pretend that this is my morning message. So I'm just going to say, good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, as you can see up here, and we are going to be teaching some maths today. Record your quick message, go back to your keynote presentation like this, and now you can add in your video. Remember, anything you add ever to your native apps is always the plus button. So press plus, media tab, go to your photos or videos, and find your video like this. Okay. Now, I always like to start with the blank video and then go on to the next one. It's a new feature that Keynote has introduced where you can now play the video over multiple slides. So I'm going to add in now I'm going to duplicate this slide. And on my next one, I want to have the word Monday, which is what I said, to have it pop up. For some people, that's really good to have visual representation like this. And I just need to place it in the correct place. So I'm just going to play the video very quickly so that I know where it needs to go. There we go. That's roughly about right. Now, obviously, because I'm mirroring this through the platform, you might not be able to hear the sound, but don't worry, it does work. Okay. I then duplicate this again. And on the next one, I'm going to move that down. And I think I said I was teaching math today. So put on like that. Or I might then have a symbol, search for math, make the color a different color. That'll do. I can add that on like that. Play just to see if you're roughly in the right place. That'll do. And now you're ready to present your video, okay? Now to do this on an iPad, the easiest way is to screen record and then play your presentation through in tap. So to have your screen record is a built-in feature on your iPad. And one of those things that maybe some people download third-party apps thinking that they don't have it built in, but it's already there. So just go to Settings app, and down the left-hand side, you'll see it says Control Center. And these are the things that are in this one up here. Now, you normally use this for things like the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, but actually you can use that for other things as well. So if I scroll down, you can see I've got the screen recording in the bottom section. So if I press the green plus button, it now jumps up to the top. So when I open my Control Center, the screen record button is here. And you can screen record with or without sound. So you can have that feature as well. And when you press that, you'll be able to screen record. Now, because again, I'm mirroring this through, it won't work as you're doing that. So if you are airplaying to something, you can't screen record whilst you airplay. All right. So you press that screen record button. You would then play the presentation in Keynote like this. You tap each time there is something you wanted to show like that. And then that's how you have a nice video. At the very end, you just swipe down, stop your video, and then you have your final introduction video that you might then need to trim slightly using the Photos app, but you can then have your video which you upload to whatever platform. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you can use, when you're in school, you can use the Classroom app really well. You can use the collaboration tool on Pages with in school and at home for those people. You can, all the other features that we've shown today, and then for the Keynote might be for something that you're using to send to your students which are only at home. So hopefully we've given you a variety of things that you can try and use with your students. Mark and Ollie, I believe time's running out from us.
Yeah, we're getting a bit to the end. We've probably got time for one more tip. If either of you have got one more tip you'd like to share.
Okay. We've got the Philippa, do you want to go through? There's a couple on there that you didn't do on your list. It's up to you.
Let me have a look. Hang on, what was on our list?
I think, do you know what I'll show is? I'll show the how to turn your pages into the EPUB, which might be something.
I was about to say that because on the ellipsis tool as well, there are so many features there that I was just thinking that's quite really useful.
Okay, so if you just pop that's it, perfect, thank you. So on here, you can be working through this document, like we said, for a collaboration feature or independently. You can also on here add hyperlinks to the different sections. So if you select on a piece of text, you can then link this, the bar appears on there, press link, and you can link it in different ways. You can link it to a web page that will take you straight there, or you can link it to a page in this document. And then I can find the books page, which in this case, it might be page 4, like that. So
which
now
is really fun to create your own ending stories.
yeah, you can create some really cool like different endings, and then the students have like it's a bit like a game when they're reading their books. It's really cool. At the end of it, when you're all finished, you can press the 3 dots, the More button, and you can see there's lots of other things you can do here. Now, you can notice there's a Smart Annotation button. So this means you can have the students send you the work, you can annotate it and send it back, and then they can see those things that they need to change. It's a bit like the markup feature. You can also track the changes. There are things like the export option, which is what I wanted to share now. So on the export, you can press that, and you can see you can export it in different ways. Now, if you're creating a template for students to fill in, you might want to turn it into a Pages template. You might want to change it into an EPUB, with export to EPUB, which you can then open in iBooks and other platforms as well. Which means if it's an EPUB, the students can access it. They can watch the video still. They can listen to the sound. They can interact with the book, but they cannot edit or change something. Now, I don't know about you, but my students love to click and change all the settings whenever they get something. So EPUB is a fantastic way to stop that from happening.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I've got a few questions, if that's all right, just to sort of come back to you both. All this stuff's fantastic. Have you got any sort of things you can share around workflow? So students are making all these amazing things. And you've talked about airdropping and things, but let's say you're a secondary teacher and you've got sort of 15 different classes you teach across your timetable. Airdropping and having all those different files everywhere can be a bit of a nightmare. Have you got any solutions that you're using to sort of keep all these things in one place? At all, either of you?
Well, for me, like Files is a relatively new app, which is really cool, and you can integrate other platforms into it. So, for example, if your school is a Google Drive school, like where they keep all their information on Google Drive, you can integrate that into your Files app. So that's quite useful. As you can see, whenever you click the share button on any of the apps, all of the apps that are installed on your iPad, you can send things straight to there. Often they will change it into a PDF, so you have to be mindful of that. But generally, you can share, and it integrates with most platforms that are being used in schools around the world.
Yeah.
I was sort of a leading question, really, because I was thinking about whether you sort of could share a bit about maybe Shobi or Seesaw, or how you might sort of integrate sending assignments through in Microsoft Teams on an iPad or Google Classroom, those sorts of things. Because say Files is great, but if you've got files from every student that you teach, if you're teaching that sort of volume of classes, you can be sort of turning over 300 kids a week. So, yeah, have you got any experience of those sorts of tools that sort of help teachers to manage all of these fantastic sort of digital artifacts that students are creating? Have you got any experience in any of those sort of platforms that I've mentioned that might be of use or of interest to our viewers?
Yeah, I'm just making sure we don't jump into this. We use Seesaw in elementary, and we use Schoology in secondary, and both platforms, and we use Teams as well for secondary. But all the platforms we've worked with, and we managed to get by. Sometimes using the web app version is better than using the app itself. In certain aspects, Seesaw works really well with iPads, and really user friendly for our younger students. Philippa, what about you?
Yeah, so we use Seesaw up until year 4, and then we cross over to the Google Classroom. And you may have noticed on my iPad when I was doing things that everything has an option to share Seesaw or to Google Drive. So what we find is with our older students, we get them to share directly to the Drive, and it saves in their own Drive. Because of the fact that we use Google Classroom, it actually has their own classroom folders on there as well. So what we encourage them to do is then to put them into the correct class folder, so that obviously that project all gets saved together. Teachers are encouraged, if they're using things like Pages and Keynote, is to actually share a template document they want them to use. Because at the moment, we're quite new to having the devices, so what we're doing is trying to upskill. Templates are used quite a lot, so we give them the template and then we ask them to collaborate back with us, and then the teacher then just creates a class folder for each of them. The student then doesn't have to worry about the folder, they just have their document which is in their files. They download it from the cloud, and that's the same actually with Seesaw. As we share the link, they download that, and then they're able to access it. Quite often with the younger year groups as well, I will put on, I'll convert something into a PDF, say for instance a Keynote. I'll upload the PDF into Seesaw, but then I will link on the actual task or the assignment where it is in the Google Drive, and they'll be able to download that onto their device. But a lot of what we're doing with them, the younger students, is very much so I will create it using the iPad, but actually what they're doing is perhaps they're creating a podcast on GarageBand, or they're making a clips video to share understanding of a concept. So they're kind of using more of the tools of the iPad as opposed to the sharing and storing of work.
One thing we noticed when we were sharing Google Drive links through Seesaw, they've now on Google Drive have a limit of how many people can access a link in a day. So we did find that sometimes a teacher was making maybe for like a subject specific, and they could have hundreds of students, that when they then all log in one day, they can't access that. So we had to duplicate a piece of something on Google Drive and then share 2 links to like the A's and the B's or whatever it is, just to kind of help with that, managing that. So that's just a little tip.
Yeah, that's been a bit of a nightmare, hasn't it? The limit on views on I think various bits of content that you put onto Google Drive. An interesting way in which you've done that. Just wondering if students are using the Files app, whether you could sort of maybe share like iCloud Drive links in there instead, perhaps, to those things. Just an idea. I'm just thinking out loud, really. But
yeah, it depends if your school's the way it's set up. Your school, like whether they have managed Apple IDs or whether they don't. And there's a whole different. It could be a whole other topic on the management of devices. We're in
a hybrid scenario at the moment. So up to year 6, they're managed devices because they use our cloud, whereas the BYOD from year 7 and above, they have the option to log into their own cloud, which means that obviously then we're then connecting and collaborating on a non-managed and a managed. But there is an option and a setting to be able to have both of them free flowing, but then obviously that causes different things that you don't necessarily want other students from outside your like kind of ecosystem to be able to get into there, and that. So it's a bit of a toss up, really.
It does go then from what I can sort of glean from your conversation and my experiences to Annalise as well. I suspect that actually it's the hard work is actually the work you do before you get any technology in anyone's hands, isn't it? It's about getting everything set up, whether you're going to be using Apple School Manager, the managed IDs, all that sort of thing. Because the example you gave with Classroom was one where students were joined through Bluetooth in the classroom. But obviously, it's much easier if you've got it set up through your managed IDs and using your MDM and all the rest of it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Again, there's limitations when you do it through the MDM. So yeah, it's there are always pros and cons of everything, I guess. But what is really cool is that what I've noticed, you can always get around it somehow. You can always find a solution, whether it's using a web version, or whether you're using an app version, whether it's using different links. And so I've not had an issue where I've not been able to use the iPad in the schools somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's always a workaround. I think as well, as a community of ADs and APLSs and Apple teachers, if people have issues with things like that, then just literally tagging something along those lines of ADE, APLS, and one of us will reach out, because things like using the link and the way that we do collaboration with students was because of having these conversations. I can't seem to get all 30 of my kids to collaborate on this one document. And then copy it and duplicate. What's the easy solution? Actually get them to share it back with you, etc. So there's workarounds and ways that we can make things easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Ollie, I've been talking loads. Did you want to make a comment?
No, it's fine. It's really interesting to see it from the other side, because obviously I work in a Microsoft school. I've never worked in an Apple school. Mark will testify that my Mac hashtag grinds to a halt. It's really, really hard. So my working device has just become my Surface. But it's great to actually see all of the different tools in action. I think one of the most important things that you've both touched on there in terms of, is consistency, but then also, in terms of consistency, driving efficiency and effectiveness, and the fact that all of the different kind of native apps that you talk about speak to each other, it does improve that. But I'd like to flip things on its head ever so slightly, although I am mindful of the time. Mark put me on the spot last week because I love Microsoft. So I'd like to put you on the spot, Mark, and ask you, what's your top tip for anything Apple Edu?
I'll say Philippa and Michael have covered it a little bit, actually, but the share to option is really, really important because it opens up the corridors into lots of other ways in which you can work with the things that you do. And over the years, we've seen, like, people getting really into app smashes and how you can sort of bring something from here to here to here to here to here. But I want to stick with native apps, actually. And I love to use, and it's really useful for students as well, to use the Notes app as a hub for lots of things. So we've seen that used in a variety of ways today, but I can't share my iPad screen, but maybe Michael, if I just bring yours back in a second.
Yeah.
So if you just open Notes a second and just sort of put my research or something as a title there. Now, once that note has been created, it's dead easy then for Michael to go off and bring lots of things together into one place. So if you open Safari now, for example, you can go from Safari, and let's say that's the research. You can go to the share icon and you can share it to his notes, and you can drop that website straight into his notes. Now you can do it through drag and drop and all that sort of thing. Rather than going to new notes, if you click on the option there, you can then choose that My Research, and it will ping it directly into that My Research section there. It's gone into its own little note there because it's on a new note, but that's absolutely fine. So just click onto there and then go My Research, and then there you go, and then save, and then boom, that's in his research. But equally, the same thing works in Keynote. So Michael had Keynote open before. So if he goes to Keynote now, what you can do is use the same share option and share that Keynote presentation directly into that research as well. The same thing's true in Pages, same things. So let's say it culminated in a bit of an experiment. You can bring your analysis of the results from that experiment from numbers straight through into your notes as well. And it's a great way of bringing all these different things that you might be doing on lots of different apps on your iPad into one place to make it much easier for students to, rather than having to go into lots of separate apps to find each bit, the Notes app acts as that hub for all those different activities that you're doing. So that would be my little tip, Ollie. There you go.
Yeah, I love it.
Nice, really good. Really good. I like how you were working together there, you ADEs. Nice.
Thanks, Michael.
Can I just mention there, jump in and very quickly. I think it's very important that people who are maybe new to Apple or whatever, always check what is capable before they go out and buy apps that are additional, because actually there's so much that is built in that people don't realize, like, for example, making an iBook using Pages rather than using third-party apps and so on. So just be really mindful of that before going out and purchasing loads of third-party apps.
I think that's really important as well, because of the fact that people do quite often say, Apple is more expensive, etc. But actually, I mean, having worked it out twice now in different schools, the amount that we used to spend on apps and third-party apps when one device can do it is incredible. And so I think that's incredibly important to consider, and also just that not overwhelming students and staff, probably more staff who are less likely to want to use all these different things, actually to be overwhelmed by all this variety, and it just sort of really disperses what's actually going on in the classroom. If you use native apps, it's clear, you've got consistency, students can really skill up on it, and it can become something that's really, really worthwhile.
No, absolutely. I do a shout out as well, like we did last week actually, for education.microsoft.com. I'd strongly recommend, if you're new to iPad, like Michael said, learning about the different apps and all native stuff, a great place to go is appleteacher.apple.com, where you can get access to not only loads of free training, you can get your Apple Teacher badge through there as well. And what's been really lovely the past sort of 8 months or so is seeing lots of ADEs coming together, creating great resources, and then they're now being shared through the Apple Teacher sites. I'd also recommend as well getting involved in Apple Edu Chat, and I think, Philippa, you've been involved in a regional version of this for the Middle East as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, Mike and I have done the ADEs for the UAE. We were doing that before the summertime, weren't we? And then more recently, one of the things that I've launched is very much actually an agnostic, and it's something not necessarily that probably people would expect, but it is very much just about bringing people together. And I think one of the things that I love, and I think Mike would agree, is about the AD community is it's very much about sharing. It's not about this is mine. It's about look what this can do. And And we've gone through a huge pandemic, still in it. And actually, one of the things that I miss hugely is having conversations with people and being able to actually collaborate from different schools and different places at networking events, at meetings, at conferences, and all these things. So tomorrow evening will be the first of the EdTech UAE kind of get-togethers, really. There's almost 60 people now signed up. I need to start saying no. And we're going to be doing collaborative chats. So we're going to do a bit of speed dating, just having get to know you. So there are going to be lots of different topics going on, and just utilising some of those. Utilising some of those people and just kind of getting people to connect together. And there's some just fantastic names that you will have heard on Twitter that are very common, kind of going really great people spearheading EdTech in the UAE. But there's also people, and this is exactly what I wanted, who are new to the role in the UAE, who are new to EdTech, who are just interested. I had one person reach out who just wants to, who says, I help people all the time with it because I love it. I'm not actually in the role, but can I come along anyway? And yes, and that's exactly what it's about. And it's going to just be about talking, collaborating, and kind of I've laid out ground rules for those people who are coming. And it's literally, this is not about my school's better than yours. It is not about I use Microsoft, it's the best. I use Apple, it's the best. It is about we all teach with EdTech. How can we help each other? What ideas do we have? How can we bring that together? So for instance, if I was talking to Ollie and saying, oh, we do this, he might have someone else who would go, oh, well, Microsoft, you just do it like this. And that's the conversations that I want to be having. Just thinking about those next steps. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. It ain't what you do, is the way that you do it, as they say. So fantastic to see you bringing everyone together on that initiative, Philippa, and look forward to hearing more about that after your first inaugural session tomorrow.
Exciting.
Right then, Ollie, it's about time we wrapped up, isn't it?
It's about time we wrapped up, yeah. But
we're a few minutes over.
Before we do that, should we give a final little shout out to classroom.cloud? The offer is still live, or is it just passed over, Mark, I think?
Well, I suspect if you get in quick, I suspect they'll probably still be happy for you to jump in on that special offer there, which is great for schools that use Microsoft, Apple or Google technologies to support and facilitate teaching and learning still going on. So get yourself over to classroom.cloud and you better find out more there. That's only an offer which is only available to schools in the Middle East and North African regions, the MENA region. But please do get yourself over there and have a little look and see if it's of use to you in your school. So look, thank you so much, Philippa and Michael, for joining us this evening. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise, and look forward to connecting with you both again in the not too distant future. And best of luck with your EdTech UAE session tomorrow, Philippa. Thank you very much both for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.